Hello.
Hey,
Hi, Sophie. How are you?
I am good. Thank you so much. How are you?
I am great in bright and sunny Dallas. But let's get started. And I have so many exciting questions to ask you about today's topic, which is confident leadership, managing diverse teams. But I'm Kristin Gutierrez. I am a best-selling author of Be a Better Sales Leader, and I'm a 20-year sales and leadership veteran, helping others get out of their own way and just do the damn thing. And you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm not a best-selling author. I feel like you have a good track record of having those on here. I'm the head of sales and marketing at Clunet. I have been in the company for almost 10 years. It's going to be my 10-year anniversary soon. And thank you. I've been in many different industries. And I'm originally from Germany, moved to the United States 12 years ago. And yeah, so as an immigrant myself, that topic is very close to my heart. So thank you so much for having me and talking about it.
Absolutely. Yes, the diversity of you as an individual and kind of your background is definitely something we'll peel back the layers in the next 20 minutes or so. But I know that you were recently in Japan for work, I believe. And tell us what that was like in general. Tell us if you're still suffering from jet lag, because I know you got back a few days ago. And then also, like, how is it from like cultural friction, or like in meaning like where compared to where you live in New York City?
Oh wow, that's a big question. Yeah, it's such a crazy coincidence that I actually just came back from a country that is so culturally different. To start, I'm very jet lagged. I never had a jet lag like this. So for everybody who's traveling between the United States and Asia all the time, I have so much respect for you. I haven't slept in I think 4 days, but yeah, I'm still kind of like buzzing from the experience. And yeah, Japan is such an interesting country and market. It's what I didn't know. I came to Tokyo thinking it's a very diverse city just because it's such an international recognized city, but it's very, yeah, homogeneous actually. There's very little immigration, there are very few expats. Also, of course, work in the language space. Very few people spoke English, so of course, huge market for translation as well. And I realized that being in a country that is not very diverse, it's very smooth. Everybody's very polite. Everybody's very similar, which causes, I think, less friction. Especially the first days, I was just so impressed how smooth everything was going, from the train to your dining experience, to just being on the street, like, Shibuya crossing where so many people are crossing at the same time. Like if you cross an avenue in New York, it's more stressful than doing that with 100 people. But after a while, I was kind of like missing a little bit that diversity of New York. I'm just like, I'm missing the friction like this. There is a little of an energy. Everybody always says New York has such a crazy energy. And I think it comes from diversity because, yeah, there is a little bit of friction. We're very different. So, yeah, I started missing that. And when I came back, I was just like, oh, yeah, this is this is where the magic happens.
Well, personally, I've never been specifically to Japan. And it's been years now since I've traveled to Asia. So thank you for sharing the fact that you are jet lagged. You look amazing. Hopefully, it'll only be a few more days from now. And yeah, the cultural diversity or lack thereof, that's just really something interesting given the timeliness of this, interview or session that we're having, this discussion. So I wanted to make sure we kind of brought that to the front. But before we dive in more, building diverse teams, it can mean a lot of things, and even, visiting cultures or visiting other countries. So let's set the stage to what diversity means for the purposes of this session. Go ahead and give me like your thoughts on diversity, and then I'll weigh in just so that we have a foundation.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I have to admit, being a woman in tech and generally like being a woman in business, for me, my diversity lens was very, very much shaped around that. So I always saw like, oh, there are not enough women in this space. So I was very focused on that. But then thankfully now working with people from all over, I realized there's so much more to diversity. course, there's racial diversity, there's like nationalities, but there's also age, there's like the neurodiversity as well. Like some people just function differently. There are people who cannot start working at 8 a.m. and other people, are super early birds. Like there's so many different ways of being diverse. People are introverted or extroverted. I'm super extrovert. I think I only get energy from being around other people. So learning that other people cannot be on the same pace that I am socially also really helps. And yeah, so those I think are very important for me. Am I missing any?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I
Probably
think it's
missing a lot.
yeah, but it's really fascinating, right? It's a little bit about female versus non-female. It's a little bit about the age difference. It's a little bit about like the background of where people come from. It's a little bit about the industries or the jobs people held previous to the job that they might be holding now. I think you touched on a lot of it, right? The extrovert, sales, we're all extroverted. I like to say I'm an introverted extrovert. Like, so I can be fully on, and people who know me, like I'm on, but then I need my downtime. And I was just telling somebody, because of the hotel I'm in, like they gave me this beautiful upgrade and I'm here for several nights. And I have a lot of in-person events to do in Dallas while I'm here. And so that's a great balance for me, is I can go and give my energy, right? And then I can come back here and I feel like I'm in a retreat. I can really relax. But yeah, even from that perspective, right? Making sure, because what I want to go to next is tell me, before we kind of talk about building diverse teams, tell us a little bit about like your experience in the 10 years you've been at PlueNet and like how you've had to restructure your teams in the past.
Yes. When I restructured, the team was not very diverse, to be honest. I didn't really realize that until after the restructuring. So we're a German company by nature, so we had a lot of people from Germany on the team. It was also definitely like male dominated. And when I started hiring people, I also realized that you don't have to really force diversity. Like if you look for the best candidates and have an open mind, like the best candidates are going to be a diverse team. Because of course I got like these comments, from friends who were just like, oh, Sophie, come on, like, are you on your, agenda? Are you only like hiring women now? I'm like, no, I'm hiring whoever's the most qualified. And like, I promise you, if you do that, it's not going to be all white and male. It's even in tech. And and in the beginning, I think people are sometimes a little worried about building diverse teams, because you can think like, oh, there are frictions, you have all of these different cultures together. But I actually see the opposite. I actually think we have a way smoother experience now. I think because if you have a diverse team, people are used to challenges, people are more flexible, and people also understand that different people have different needs, and they apply that to their work in the team, and of course their job as well, which I think is a huge plus.
Yes. Okay. So many questions, right? Because I think now that we're in the meat of it, it feels like in building out functional teams, and this could be cross-functional and, in any department organizationally, it just so happens you and I have always typically played sales. So like in building out a sales team, for example, how does diversity of the team impact you as a leader? And you did touch on it a little bit, but like what else? Like from your decisions as a leader, and then how is the team impacted as a result of all of that? Like what are some additional even benefits of making sure the team is truly diverse?
Yeah, I think I lean a lot on my team also for advice, and which make like a lot of decisions we also can make as a team, because you get all of these different perspectives in. And I think it's really cool for everybody else as well, because if you just because you work in a certain market doesn't mean you not maybe have a contact person from a different culture as well, because I mean in our industry we all live somewhere else. And I think it makes everybody better that they can be like, hey, maybe I'm struggling with this, opportunity, and somebody else can come in and just like, no, I actually think, you need to leave that person alone. Like, don't follow up too much. It's not like America where people appreciate that. So I think it really helps, having a diverse sales strategy as well, and kind of knowing that you have to approach different opportunities in a different way. And yeah, I also learned that I don't know everything, even though I mean, I knew that before, but as I feel like as the manager, you very often think you have to have the answers for everything. But if you work with a lot of like a diverse team with also different ages where people have more experience in some ways as well, yeah, you kind of learn that you can just ask sometimes and get like different opinions, and then you get usually to a great result.
Well, I think you just touched on something because you're talking about, transactional, like the business, like the relationships and being with the client. And sometimes we don't necessarily think that our clients too are diverse. Even if we're calling on the same like for like type client, at the end of the day, those teams are all made up of very diverse personalities and cultures. So you as an individual, as we talked about previous, like, remind us again in your answer, like you're from Germany and you've lived in the States X number of years. So like that helps to influence your opinion for better or for worse on like, oh, can you give us an example, let's say, of like a time where maybe you were meeting with a client and you recognize that maybe it wasn't them being rude or standoffish. Maybe that was actually part of, that was their culture. So even if they were living in the US or this is a US based client, like maybe their culture had something to do with the way they were responding or the lack thereof. Is there any examples you have from your team engagements?
I can think of many. I can think of a very bad example where it really messed up, and then I can also think of a good one. I actually have one. Let's start with a good one, and then let's dive into my failures. I recently had somebody working on an opportunity in the US, and usually the US is very good at communicating. So the prospect just we didn't hear from them at all. They didn't want any meetings. They were testing. Didn't have any questions. Our Japanese sales consultant, she was saying like, oh, are they Japanese? Because that's how Japanese people are. They just figure it out on their own. They want to study on their own time. Like they don't need meetings. They will look through all the data you send. And of course, that was exactly what happened. And everything went beautifully, and they just needed their time. And that also made us realize that people are different. So we need to give people the options to be like, hey, do you want a meeting and a check-in with us every day while you're testing, or do you want material that doesn't just apply to Japanese people? There are also Americans who maybe want to study on their own and not like hear they say it's person call. And other people, if you don't, reach out, they think you're not interested. So that was a good one.
That before you go to the bad, I mean, I think it's just so interesting because in sales, right, it really isn't about us anyway. And
Yes.
it is about the client. And so diverse or not, it's like, what is the individual need as the buyer from us, the seller, in order to feel like they're having their needs met? And we can't approach it all the same. Otherwise, we will miss out on opportunities because it's often the 1% shift in which that this client wanted hyper engagement or this client wanted to be left alone, right? And that could make or break the difference between annoying them or not following up enough. Just asking that is really what helps keep you and a sales team in line with the expectations. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that as your winning example.
Okay, I'll give you the bad one. I should have known better because I'm originally from Germany. So I don't know if you know, but like in German, we have a formal and an informal way of speaking to people. And I've lived in the States for so long that I'm very used to the more informal. And also at Plunet, we're more informal in our communication. So we reached out to a German prospect in German, but in the informal, immediately like using first name. And it's actually like for some people in Germany, like it's a really, really bad thing. And I feel like I would have thought about it if I had reached out to somebody in Japan. But then with my own culture, all of a sudden, I didn't even think. And then people on my team, they were like, because they moved to Germany, they know better than me at this point. So the person was actually really, really upset and didn't want to work with us anymore because of it. And so we talked about that in the team, and we're like, okay, we have to understand that we have to address people formally when we reach out to people in Germany. And so, yeah, I'm a little embarrassed that as the German person, I should have obviously flagged that myself. But yeah, it was a good learning to really know you have to have a regional strategy. You cannot just think you can go with your American, like, hey, what's up, into every market.
That's true. Right. And I mean, it's also, again, like, even if that person might have been living in the States, right, and they still had that cultural approach intact, they might have been a little bit more flexible. Maybe you wouldn't have lost the sale, but it's still like meeting people where they are instead of assuming it's a one size fits all, right?
Yes. Yeah.
We're getting lots of great feedback from people listening. So thank you so much. If anyone's watching, please comment and we will share your comments accordingly. Thank you. So Sophie, so much great context here. Let's talk about how the fact of different personalities on your team. Talk about asking your team, as you know, you're like, I'm the leader and I don't always have all the right answers. So the benefit of having a diverse team means we've got more ideas potentially in the melting pot for us to explore from. But how does different personalities create friction? And how does the personalities of a team challenge the status quo? And I'm going to assume you're saying it's a good thing, but I won't put words in your mouth. Like, you tell us, like, well, how does the different personalities in the team challenging the status quo, how does that benefit or not the team and the organization at large?
Yeah, I think when it comes to diversity and personality, there's, of course, there's the positive friction, but you also have to really change the way you, for example, have meetings. Because I realized when I started in the sales team, the people who talk the most usually get the most speaking time, right? And I'm one of those people that can be like very forward, but if you have a team where you also have people who are a little more quiet, that doesn't mean they don't have good ideas. And you have to make sure that you don't just listen to the loudest ones, or the ones that are like brave enough and confident enough to just like always give you feedback. And that's something I have to remind myself. I'm definitely not super great at it yet, but to make sure that, you know, you give people speaking times. We started actually doing it on our management offset as well, where we just like, we have a topic, like everybody gets 60 seconds. I learned that from one of our clients actually. Carol from Stillman, thank you so much for that, to just give everybody like 60 seconds or 2 minutes to respond. So everybody gets the exact same time, because very often I see that in my team, people have amazing ideas, but they might also be better one-on-one to share those. So they might not love like sharing them in a big group, but then you have to make sure you listen to everybody, because otherwise, yeah, you just listen to the ones that are the loudest.
You know, that's so like, it's just a thing, right? And it's not a gender thing, but in high school, I was perpetually embarrassed to speak up. And every time I did, my face turned red. And that just made me more and more embarrassed. And I ultimately chose to go to an all women's college. And that was like a silver lining for me, is that it level set everyone, right? So that it wasn't the typical continue, like, even if it was the same people then in those classes, you leveled the playing field freshman year, and then I grew into my own. And here I am right now, a sales leader and all the things.
Yeah.
My face still turns red, but like what you're hitting on really does resonate, because as a leader, it's your responsibility to make sure that in the meeting like that, everyone does feel comfortable, but also recognizing that, call it imposter syndrome or something else, like, you help the team members overcome it. And so this strategy of everyone gets 60 minutes to respond is something that puts everybody on the same playing field, right?
Yes.
And then working one-to-one with the team members who might feel shy or embarrassed or have imposter syndrome, and helping them overcome that further in your one-to-ones. These are really great. There's a question from the audience, and then we'll wrap up. So Satu says, I'll share it here. She says, when building teams, would you try to target underrepresented groups when recruiting? And I know you actually touched on this a little at the start, so it's great to kind of come full back circle to this. Like, she says here, non-white people, to try to be making even our industry more inclusive. But from your experience, given that you did restructure and build out a diverse team, talk with us one more time about what you looked for, the best candidate of their gender or skin color, but talk with us a little bit more. Great question.
Yeah, it is a really great question. And I feel like we are so diverse in our industry, but on the other hand, most of the companies in our industry are quite small. So it's very hard to do like, I mean, to have like that amount of applicants where you can really make the selection in a way that it matters. Like when I think of like a Google, they have way bigger of a responsibility than like a small MSP that has maybe 3 people applying for a job. What I do think is important to exactly like create these teams, these diverse, non-white, underrepresented, that these people can apply is really looking also at the criteria you set out. So one thing we said goodbye to, which I'm super, super proud of the company, is we used to, for our sales positions, a college degree, like a Finnish college degree, which doesn't make any sense because you really did not, to be a good salesperson, you don't need to finish college. I mean, as long as you understand, business, and that if you're a person that, is very motivated, you can learn, and like technical, you can learn all of these things. So I think if you look at what you're putting out there in your job descriptions, you get like a more diverse pool, because you might get people who didn't finish college for many reasons. They're people who might not be able to afford finishing college or afford going to college to begin with. So I think that's a really, really good tool to target these underrepresented groups, and really thinking about like, what do I put on there? I know there are companies who literally say like, we only hire Ivy League people. And I'm like, great. I mean, awesome way of getting a diverse workforce. So yeah, so this is what I definitely try to do to make sure the job descriptions don't, yeah.
What a zinger at the last end of this, because I have 2 small children and I hope they go to college for the experience of it. But I'm 100% in agreement that, like, I mean, and it's statistically proven, right? Some of the brightest minds that we have went to Ivy League or didn't go at all. So like, it isn't necessarily an indicator, but to call out the fact that you've removed it from the job description is something I think it's like an actionable strategy for a lot of people watching to take back to their teams and for their roles. Is it really a requirement? And to challenge the status quo with their leaders and their HR representatives to say like, these roles don't need that, or what other candidates, we can make the decision once we have candidates, but by eliminating that as a requirement, are we actually opening up the pool greater? That's fascinating to me. Yeah.
It's also when you say it sounds even better. When you say it sounds even better. Thank you for summarizing it in such a good way.
Yeah, but it is a little controversial, but it goes both ways, right? Like narrowing it even further to say you have to come from Ivy League, and or opening it up entirely to say it's not there. So not to put you on the spot, but any other tips as it relates to like strategies for finding non-diverse candidates, maybe on the job description or in the interviewing processes?
I mean, in the interviewing processes, what we also do, we try to have the team come in as well. So the decision is not just made by few people, which I think really, really helps. And yeah, I feel like sometimes you also completely underestimate how good people are at choosing the right people for the team. I mean, they know the company as well. But another thing I really think people need to look at their management team and make sure they have a diverse management team, because it all starts from management. So if you have a very, very homogeneous management team where everybody is the same, it will be very, very hard to recruit people. And if you have a diverse leadership team, the diversity usually comes as like a side result. Like all of a sudden, you don't need to put all of these things in place anymore. So I think, it's always good to take a look in the management suite as a first step.
I love that. I love that. And I hate now the sun coming in. Oops, I'm freezing. Okay. So to wrap up, Sophie, thank you so much for sharing your ideas and having this conversation about confident leadership and building diverse teams. This is a great question. I'm going to start asking all of my future people who join me, but like, what is some advice you would give your younger self?
My God,
I know.
I was not prepared for that at all.
I know. So fair, but yeah.
I think I would probably I would tell my younger self probably to take things a little less seriously and not worry too much. I was a very serious child, and I think I'm still like a very serious person. And the older I get, the more I'm just like, okay, it's all or not. Yeah, don't stress yourself too much. It's not good for you. So I feel like that's probably the thing I would tell my younger self.
That is it doesn't have to be some complex idea. That is just simple and straightforward. But, I mean, speaking of cultures, like maybe it had a little bit to do with the culture and your upbringing. And now the fact that you've moved across continents and you have experience living somewhere else. But yeah, no, I too, I take myself too seriously. So that is great advice, even as an adult.
True. I should probably give myself that advice as an adult as well. Thank you for the question.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for being with us. If you're not already connected to Sophie on LinkedIn, go ahead and find her, connect, and I will post the replay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was great seeing you.
Yeah,
Bye,
good luck with the
everybody.
jet lag.
Thank you. Bye-bye.